Welcome back to this week's episode of Dale Earnhardt, Sexy or Not. Still trying to answer the question, still taking all the calls we can get. If you have any leads, if you have any info on Dale Earnhardt Jr., not Senior, being sexy, please call into the podcast. But no, all fun and games aside, this is the Cooper Lyden is Alone podcast. It's going to be an audio-only episode because I am trying to get this out as quick as possible. And you know what? Let's be honest, guys. The video is a perk, okay? A lot of people think that they deserve a video podcast every week, and that's not true, okay? Because I know what you guys do with it. All right? I know you jerk off to me. I know you make deep fakes of me saying things I never would say. I know that, okay? I'm not an idiot. It's not my first time around the block. And frankly, I feel like every time I record a video, it's just going to be used and abused by you people, okay? So who's to say I'll ever do a video again? I know what's wrong with you, okay? You're not hiding it. The point is, I am recording this on Sunday at 8 a.m. I did record another episode yesterday, and I listened back to it, and I felt that it was not very entertaining and was pretty aggressive. I don't really know why I said a lot of the things that I said on it. I did quote Muammar Gaddafi, and I feel like that's not really the direction I want to take the podcast in. So upon a re-listen, I realized, let's release something that's a little less of whatever this is. You know, seems like we were in some kind of a mood yesterday about comedy and a lot of things. There's something about anger that is almost like being drunk where, I mean, I wasn't in any kind of blind rage when I recorded the podcast, but I think I took a little anger into the podcast in the hopes that it would sort of play as, you know, energetic, maybe funny, maybe kind of keep people interested in the pod. And, you know, and then watching it again, I was like, there's something really kind of fucked up about this whole episode. It's very just, I don't like it. But yeah, I don't remember saying a lot of the things I said. And it's, you watch a video of yourself and you're like, wow, I was going to release this to the world as like a piece of entertainment. And it's just me sitting arms in my lap, which is always good for a podcast. My hands are on the desk right now, and I'm not even filming it. But yeah, hands in my lap, me not looking at the camera that I had set up, and just getting mad about everything in my life, and a lot of things not in my life that I was not involved with, and for some reason have a lot of opinions about. And I seem to have made a podcast of a bunch of topics, ideas, and behaviors that I would never want to release. Which is funny, because in comedy, you're like, yeah, you know, I always just want to be funny, and, you know, I'm not trying to sound like too smart of a guy. And then I re-listened to this podcast, and none of it was funny, and it seemed like I was really trying to sound like too smart of a guy. And then really for the first thought in a while, I thought maybe I should think more about the things that I say and do on my podcast. And that's not even like a thing of like, because I'll get in trouble. That's not really a reality right now. What is a reality is trying to make something that would be nice for people to listen to. And, you know, watching the podcast yesterday sort of felt like maybe Elvis seeing a video of himself on stage and being like, I think I've really let myself go. Except the difference is nobody likes me. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, the only difference between me and Elvis Presley is that nobody likes me. But besides that, there's a lot of similarities. I mean, a lot of record producers and executives apparently have listened to this podcast, and then their assistant says, you know, he's white. And they say, what? And they go, I know. You're listening to a white guy. And they say, Cooper Lyden of the solo rant style Cooper Lyden is Alone podcast is white. And they say, I know. And they say, this is going to make millions of dollars. It turns out you can't steal podcasting the same way they did rock and roll from black people. And so things have not really taken off for me. Mostly just a lot of hate, people trying to really shut this whole thing down. But they can't. I'm now recording from an undisclosed location, and I am not accepting any more podcast deals. I've gotten in enough trouble. But we are going to pivot to a murder mystery podcast once I kill a guy. So I'm going to kill a guy, and then I'm going to investigate it, because that's the one thing the other murder podcasts don't do, is they don't kill guys. And I'm always going to be upfront about that I am the killer. But I'm going to take you through. I wouldn't really call it investigative, I guess. It will be more confessional. But yeah, I'm going to kill a guy, and then I'm going to talk about it. And I hope that could be interesting, and maybe people could. I mean, the real hope is that, there are young kids out there that know they're killers, but they can't tell their parents yet. And maybe this could just be a home for them, to really not express themselves, but feel represented somewhere in media. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of, homicidal children out there that, nobody pays any attention to. And we need to foster talent in this country, not drive it out, not shoo it away. So that's something I'd like to build upon in the future. But speaking of that, I am a big fan of the Only Murders in the Building show. I was about to call it a podcast. Here's why. If you haven't seen Only Murders in the Building, it's with Steve Martin, Martin Short, and Selena Gomez. And I'll tell you what, it's fun. It's a barrel of laughs. They all live in a nice building in New York City, and they run a podcast together about murder because people in their building keep getting murdered. And it's a dumb show. It's very stupid. And I have a lot of comedian friends. And sometimes when you watch a show like that, they make fun of you for watching a silly show. Even if it's Steve Martin and Martin Short, which I don't understand. I don't understand how you can make fun of anything those men do. That's like making fun of Santa Claus. I don't know what you mean by that, People try and act like it's dumb. I don't understand the critique. There's not enough things on TV or in movies that are like stupid. And by stupid, I mean like intentionally stupid. Like there's a lot of parts in this show. And it can be a very serious show. There's people dying in it. But there's a lot of parts in the show that are intentionally dumb. The same way there's parts in The Jerk that are intentionally dumb. You know what I mean? And my favorite movie is a Blues Brothers, and I've been open about that on this podcast. I haven't lied about that. It's always been an open book for me here. But my favorite movie is a Blues Brothers. And what I like a lot about that movie is that it's not realistic. That they establish in the beginning of the movie that somehow these men cannot die. That they're on a mission from God. And that they're kind of the greatest musicians in the world. Like, that's not really the point. I don't think the writers would say that. But that's not a part. Like, they're just awesome. And there's a lot of, parts in that movie. There's a lot of laugh lines that are just, or not laugh lines, but there's a lot of moments where you're supposed to laugh that are just car crashes. And it's just dumb, but it's fun. It's like a big movie of the summer, you know what I mean? Like, that was a big movie. People were so excited. So they just made it as dumb as possible. They crashed 150 cop cars. And I look around at comedies now, and they all have to be, I don't know, too based in reality. Like, all the lines, like all the laugh lines in a TV show now are like just like two people arguing, and then, one of them says something like kind of odd, and they're like, what? It's like, I don't know. There's not like stupid, like nobody's like coming in from the side of a scene with just one dumb, stupid line, except for Mr. Martin Short and for Mr. Steve Martin. That's what they do best. Okay? And, I don't care that nothing is being said about anything at any time during the podcast. I don't care. During the show, I mean. What I do care about is that everybody I know is trying to say something about everything at all times, and I would like a break from it. I don't need everybody to be smart all the time. I'd actually like them to tone it down a little bit. It's a very serious world we live in, and people are very serious, and even their comedy is serious, even when it's not serious. You know, there's a lot of like you look at Twitter now, and the jokes are, so simple sometimes that it's for the same reason I like the show, is that people just need kind of a break from the seriousness. And even that has a sort of a serious tone. It's sort of a desperate tone. It's nice, I don't like, I don't know. I don't like when there's a stupid show and then people are like, this is the end of society. This is what people watch. TV's stupid. I don't understand the sacred nature of it. Like, some show comes along and some people choose to dislike it. They're like, oh, it's so dumb. What's the world coming to? And it's like, I don't know. Is it dumber than Love Boat? Is it dumber than Gilligan's Island? Is it dumber than the litany of shows involving the ocean? They didn't really know how to deal even with the ocean until like 1990. Okay? Is it dumber than any of the cop shows that had various vehicles all the way up to a helicopter? Like, is it really? Like, was TV so great? Was it so fucking amazing and life-changing and now it's not? No. It's just as good, if not better. There's a little too much of it. There's way too much of it. So there's a lot more bad stuff getting made, but there's a lot more interesting stuff that maybe wouldn't get made in a smaller market getting made. And at the end of the day, it's a bunch of people pretending to be other people in a studio to entertain. It's a lie. It's a lie. And it's not even as... You don't even have to be as good as a theater actor to do TV. You know what I mean? Luckily, in this show, you get Selena Gomez, Steve Martin, Martin Short, Meryl Streep, and then a cast of characters whose names I should know, but I don't. And they all pull their weight. It's people that are really having... You know why I like it? And this is true. It's a show that I watch it, and I say, they're having fun filming this. And thank God somebody's having fun, okay? Because right now, everybody I know is celebrating the death of 100-year-old Henry Kissinger. And listen, I'm not saying I'm not. I wasn't a fan by any means. I will say it's kind of a sign of kind of a hopeless generation that 100-year-old evil guy dies and we consider that a win. I don't really get how that's a win. I feel like if you live to be 100, you kind of won the game, Like if you destabilize multiple countries across the world and then you kind of just bomb Laos or whatever and you don't really ask for permission from your own government to do it. If you commit that kind of atrocity and then you get to live to be 100, I don't think it's a win for the people that hated you when you die. Like, if Hitler lived to be 100, we wouldn't be like, God, his dumbass. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't really chalk that up to a win. But that's where we're at. And I would rather get my smiles from Steve Martin's smile than I would the dead face of a 100-year-old piece of shit, who, frankly, I don't know much about. Kissinger's kind of one of these guys that, I don't know, some of the smarter kids on Twitter just talk about how much he sucks, and I'm like, okay, I mean, I buy it. You said he was kind of a shadowy politician for about 40 years? Sure, yeah, I mean, that's the most evil thing you can be. So, I'll agree with you. Frankly, I don't really want to read about it, but thanks. And that's... I don't know. I think everybody's kind of trying to live a smaller life. I think a big critique of every generation is like, are they going to change the world? Are they lazy? Or, what are they doing? There are generations that fight wars and they can kind of coast off that as a whole, and there's generations that don't. And I think sometimes they're left kind of hopeless, I mean, Gen X is rough because it's like, even the Gen Xers that did join a war, there weren't really any noble wars for them to join, so they came back and everybody was like, why the fuck did you join that war? And they're like, aren't I a hero? And everybody's like, no. And the rest of Gen X just spent 40 years writing books about going to diners. And now, within the last, 6 to 10 years, has started watching the news and is all of a sudden telling everybody to go out and vote, which is an odd change for the generation that's known as not giving a fuck about anything or doing anything. I think they got scared. I think a lot of Gen Xers spent their life being a little laissez-faire about everything, and then they got old, and they were like, oh, shit. This is bad. This is a bad world that we live in. Time to go tell people to change it. And it's like, buddy, no. Okay? It's too late. Okay? Gen Xers telling me that I have to vote for Biden. Listen, I'm not voting for anybody else, but stop being so goddamn excited about it, okay? It's weird. It's fucking weird. And it's a bad look for all of us, okay? It's a bad look how amped you are that Biden is president. It doesn't make the party look good. I don't think you know what to do with politics, because I honestly don't think anybody over the age of 40 really cared about politics for a while. And a lot of people disagree. They'd say, no. People used to care way more about politics. I think there's kind of a dip. I think there was a dip. And then a lot of people got older and they came back because they retired or just got bored or got scared. And when you get old and scared, you start getting into politics. You know what I mean? You get to that dad age where you see a group of guys walking down the street and you just assume they're going to kill you. That's when you start watching the news. And then the news tells you that that group of guys was going to kill you. And all of a sudden, you want to kill Gavin Newsom. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the, and, I promised myself, my listeners, and the world that I'm not gonna change on you guys, okay? I'm gonna always be a part of a bad system. Because I would like to do stand-up comedy, and I'm not going to make any qualms about that, okay? There are certain people that were born to be activists and revolutionaries. People like Fred Hampton, people like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Cesar Chavez. There are people that do those jobs. And then there's Cooper Lyden, okay? And Cooper Lyden is not somebody that's going to do those jobs. And that's a source of shame for me. I think it should be a source of shame for a lot of people when you realize that you're not necessarily a leader, okay? But I can tell you one thing. I'm not going to fix that sense of shame by tweeting, okay? Okay, words are silly, and they don't really get things done just about ever, And there's a lot of people that I can tell feel that sense of shame, that they're young, they're millennial, they're Gen Z, they don't like the world they live in, and, they don't want to be passive to the awful things that are going around, and they kind of don't know what to do because they don't want to put a gun in their hand. They don't really want to hurt anybody, but they want something to change. And so they go on Twitter and they say, we got to fucking kill these guys, And then everybody's like, hell yeah, we do. And then you don't, but it felt good to say it. And, do I think those people are fucked up? No, I think they're a little bit annoying. I think there's people that are a little bit annoying all the time. And I think they talk about a litany of different things at different times. I think now we live in a world where there's a lot of serious, awful things happening on a daily basis, and anybody is allowed to comment on them. So, there are some people that maybe in another time they would spend all their time talking about Paris Hilton, But now things are a little more serious. So they're talking a lot about the Mujahideen or something like that. And God bless them, but, they're not the smartest people. They're not really a leader or a revolutionary. They don't really have the bravery to go and really do anything. But they feel bad about that, so they want to talk about it. They would like to talk about it, which is I think it's kind of funny. I mean, if you kind of look at all the world's problems, the general American response, the response of individual Americans, especially Americans under the age of 35, is, what can I say about this? It's a weird insertion of their own opinion into the problems of others. But the opinion is so important because they don't, the action is they don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. You don't want to give up your phone and then go to the Congo and start fighting for the rights of, really just literal slaves in the modern day age. You don't want to do that. You want to build up your graphic design career, but also it makes you sad. So you got to do something, and that's tweeting, And and that's the American response. It's like, well, what do I say about this? And the rest of the world is kind of being like, hey, nobody gives a fuck. And then America's like, no, that's not it. Something longer. And they're like, that's not what I was saying. It's shh. A lot of being an American is just sort of different ways that you convince yourself you're not complicit in just kind of mass death, you know what I mean? To get your food and your electronics and everything that keeps you up, And I think people really struggle with that. Funny enough, it's such a funny, privileged thing to struggle with is not the slavery, but the fact that you kind of know you buy things from companies that own slaves. You know what I mean? It's the most privileged position to buy things from Apple or like a Nestle product and know that, that company kind of is using slave labor. And then to go, what do I do though? And the answer would be, well, we probably shouldn't buy stuff from that company, right? And then everybody goes, yeah, but if you don't have an iPhone, then your texts show up green. And people call you poor, so that's not going to work for me. Those guys got to keep, banging out these products, and even the Androids are not made fairly, So, yeah, and I think you're kind of just left with a couple of options as an American. It's just like, do you constantly speak out about what we do to maintain our power, or do you look at that and go, you know what? I've been making this deal with the devil and our own government my entire life to be lightly complicit in horrors beyond imagination, and I'll just ride that out, or do you try and fight against it, That's really the question. But yeah, America is just, it's the country of words. We probably talk more than anybody else. We definitely have the most podcasts per capita. You know what I mean? I'm a 24-year-old guy with a creative writing degree, which is a lack of knowledge that is maybe didn't even exist before this day and age. And for some reason, I woke up at 7 telling myself I got to get this podcast out. That's a very American idea, to force yourself to get up to record a podcast that about 15 people listen to and go, we need this thing, whatever this whole crazy thing is, needs to get out, And, I'm trying to find the real reasons I do things. And it's, I can tell you what drives me is not the good of man. And that makes me sad, But what does drive me is I just like the talking, And I don't want to lie about that, Nothing is going to change from any word I say, And there's a lot of people that talk about how the world is fucked up, and then they get 500,000 listeners. And they kind of start telling themselves that they're actually changing the world because a lot of people are listening. And it's like, no, it's just a bunch of other people that would also like those things to happen, but no, they won't. So really, the whole podcast is just kind of therapeutic in that way. The same with the Twitter accounts that go, you need to donate to this, or here's a GoFundMe, or something like that. It's really more therapy for them than it is actual help for the people they are proclaiming to try and save. And, a lot of people would call the people that sort of post a lot, do a lot of talking without a lot of doing, they'd call them, pieces of shit and stuff. And I think you can call them pieces of shit the same way everybody's kind of a piece of shit now. Everybody in America is kind of a piece of shit. I'm hoping in the next few years we can all kind of get there. You know what I mean? Because we're a pretty divided country in terms of, identity, who is saying what about what. Obviously I, as a cis white dude, have a lot less perspective than a lot of other people. But I would hope in the next 5 years we can all be like, hey, I may be a white guy and you may be whatever you are, but we still got cobalt in our phones, huh? We're still in this together, We still are the 1% of the world. Even if your life in America is a lot worse than my life in America, we're still the 1% of the world. This is what it looks like, baby. This is a home run country. We are standing on the bodies of the dead to be here, to post on Instagram. That's why we play the game, baby. And that's tough. That makes people sad. But, that's why I like only murders in the building. And I just try and not give myself a lot of guilt to live with. There are people in 2023 that are still have white guilt. Nobody wants you to do that. You know what I mean? Nobody wants you to walk around and feel sad about it while not doing anything else, okay? And that is why I want you to buy my new book called White Gratitude. I saw some memes on Twitter that said, don't say sorry, say thank you. If you're late to see your friend, don't say sorry I'm late, say thank you for waiting. And that's what I do as a white person. I go to Indigenous Native Americans and I say thank you for your land. And I go to the litany of other people we've hurt, and I say thank you for letting us do that. It was very beneficial to not only my family, but my people as a whole. I thank you. And a lot of people would say that that's grossly disrespectful. And those are people that don't understand gratitude. You know what I mean? They just don't understand gratitude. I walk around HBCUs and I say thank you. I'm sorry, but thank you. I still say I'm sorry a little bit. White Gratitude, that is coming out in very, very, and I mean very select stores. I don't really know where any of the stores that it's coming out in are. They're kind of off the grid kind of places. I don't know. They're places where groups of guys live. They seem to all be working towards some kind of common goal, but they have gift shops, and the book will be there. Getting a little worried about the audience that's going to buy the book, but I don't really want to get, I'm just speaking my truth. A lot of people have called the book dangerous rhetoric. They're using a term called dog whistle, which is new to me. I'm not really sure, but I wrote the book with love, and so I've been going on a bunch of different podcasts, which, once again, I can't seem to find them online. One of the guys I did a podcast with, Trevor, he was way out in the sticks. I asked him where I could find the podcast. He said I need a Tor browser, which is the browser you use to access the dark web. So, not totally sure where these podcasts are. Kind of starting to get worried that my presence on them might implicate me in domestic terrorist crimes. I don't know, okay? But we are having fun over here. There is a new book, and that's just something to be excited about. But yeah, today's Sunday. It's been an interesting week. Really, the reason the podcast was late was, you guessed it, Flannel Friday. I go to an open mic, at a wine shop. Next to that wine shop is a bar that I will also sometimes frequent after the mic. I went into that bar. The very nice lady that owns it, she's like an Eastern European woman. she came up and she said, tomorrow is Flannel Friday. So if you wear a flannel and you buy a Weinstefana, we'll give it to you in a boot, and you get to keep the boot, which is, like the glass German drinking boot. So once again, the promotion is, it's Flannel Friday. You wear a flannel. You buy a specific brand of beer. They will give it to you in a glass German drinking boot made by said company, Weinstefana. And if you know anything about me, you know I love a boot. I had a boot when I was 7 because I saw the movie Beer Fest, and I was amazed by the concept of a glass drinking boot, and I asked my parents to order me one for Christmas online. And I would drink Crystal Light. Yeah. Or, you don't want to make a chocolate milk because the syrup gets stuck in the toe, but goddamn right, I tried. So when I had the offer to get a new boot, I really jumped on it. And it wasn't just a boot. It had a soccer cleat on the bottom, which means the very bottom has tiny spikes on it. And that's really exciting for a glass drinking boot. Okay, that's new, that's rare. It was soccer themed. What is confusing to me, though, is that the sort of physics of the whole thing, the point of it doesn't make sense, because you can actually drink out of an empty boot. It'll stand up by itself. But this boot, it's made of glass, and then it looks like a soccer player's cleat, foot, and then coming out of that is a sock. So the only thing holding that up would be a man's leg. So really I'm drinking out of a man's leg. But anyway, I heard about Flannel Friday on Thursday, just a regular Thursday. It wasn't Sweater Thursday or anything like that. And I told my friend, and he said, "You're lying. That's not really happening." And I said, "I swear to God, go ask her." I saw him walk inside. It's a glass door. She showed him the boot. He looked at me and mouthed, "What the fuck?" And then came out. And yeah, she told us, yeah, there's only 24 glasses that we have. And we said, "When do you open?" She said 11. And so we got there at 11:30 in flannels the next day to make sure that we could get a glass drinking boot. Now, mind you, this is not a large business. It is not a extremely popular business. It's not the place that's ever had a line out the door. But for some reason, we felt that we should definitely get there at an insane time to ensure that we could get said boots. And we did. And, my plan was like, listen, this is terrible to get, because I usually get up around 10. So if we're getting there at like 11:30 to drink, that's going to be the first thing that I'm like eating or drinking is a beer, which is not really like, how I love to start my days. So, we showed up and my plan was like, I'll go, I'll drink one beer out of the boot. Maybe I'll drink half and pour the rest out. I'll go home with my little boot and then I'll sleep again. And I'll wake up an hour later or so after a little nap, and I'll just kind of pretend like that wasn't how I started my day. That did not happen. I did not leave that place until about 4 p.m. after 3 boots and a lot of golf watched and multiple friends coming by. And I gotta say, that was great marketing. It was very good marketing because it got me in. And boy, did it keep me there. I was really not going anywhere. And then, yeah, you're damn fucking right. I didn't record the goddamn podcast when I should have. What about the days before that, Cooper? Thought I had more time, Just one of those things, And if you're new to the pod, you got to understand that things like Flannel Friday might get in the way sometimes. And that's just me trying to live life, living La Vida Loca. There's a funny thing at that bar. I noticed there's a beer company. I forgot the name of it, but its slogan was 20 years, 0 regrets. They got all these cool metal signs for beer companies, and they all got their own slogans. 20 years, 0 regrets. And I've seen that sign so often. I've read that slogan so often. But this was the first time it really struck me. It's such an odd claim as to the quality of a beer to be like, well, we're not going to tell you how it tastes, but I'll tell you one thing. We don't regret shit which is, honest, a very defensive stance from a beer company. Like, imagine if you drank it, you're like, this is good. They're like, yeah, well, we regret nothing. And you're like, what did you do to make the beer? Did you hurt somebody? Because usually proclaiming you don't have regrets means that some people might regret what you've done, but you have chosen to not regret it. What have you done? Because this is just beer. I didn't think this was going to be so high stakes, but now you're saying you don't regret it. It also almost implies that other beer companies might be shrouded with regret somehow. Like, there's just brewmasters out there being like, I knew I shouldn't have made that hazy IPA. It was selfish. So many people got hurt. What was I thinking? I was just a young gun back then. I didn't give a fuck about anybody else but myself, and I was making the haziest fucking IPAs. IPAs so hazy they could be in the movie The Mist with Kevin Bacon or something. But, yeah, I don't know. I realized the reason I didn't think that slogan was weird at all was because of the understanding of the context of it. Where I think when everybody sees that slogan or any other slogan, they all read it in the same voice, which is 20 years, 0 regrets. You know, it's kind of like Springsteen or something. I don't know. I just think like white guy leather jacket, just fucking 20 years, 0 regrets. And that's how you get away with slogans a lot. There's a certain, I'm always interested in the understanding of context, the language that exists within that, to where you can kind of say anything and it's not that weird because it's a slogan. But like that phrase in and of itself to describe a beer company is batshit crazy. Like, imagine if you met a guy in real life, he told you he had a beer company, and you asked him how it's going, and then he looked at you and said, 20 years, 0 regrets. You'd be like, this guy definitely doesn't run a beer company. This guy kills people. This guy is Michael Shannon from The Iceman. This is not a beer manufacturer. This is a killer. It's odd. But yeah, that's, because that's what slogans are. Slogans for a company is asking the question, what would the coolest guy in the world say about this product? If we gave the coolest guy in the world this product, what would he say about it? Miller time, I always imagine Matthew McConaughey from Magic Mike. You know what I mean? Just jacked but subtle Matthew sitting on a sink, and marketing guys are just thinking to just have that image, just hot, sweaty, sitting on a sink, chaps. And they're like, fuck, what would he say? Live Moss. And they imagine him, and they go, Taco Bell, we got a great new slogan for you. We got a great new slogan. And that's why I think guys in marketing are kind of fucking gay, if you ask me. Because it's just a bunch of guys sitting around being like, yeah, I'd eat this burger if Travis Kelce ate this burger. Probably eat it in one bite. So big and awesome. All right, spend $1 million on it. I want to see him eat the burger. Send it through. Tell him that's what we're doing. Tell Carl's Jr. we got the new ad campaign. It's freaking awesome. Travis Kelce taking a freaking huge bite out of this burger. We're all going to love it. How the fuck do you get into that? You know what I mean? It's so crazy to me. People take meetings. And it's like, it's weird because it's like, I want to be a comedian. The only real industry I've tried to get into is the comedy industry. And it's obviously a very silly industry. It's trying to sell good times and laughs. And you hang out with comedians all the time. And it's very unserious. And yeah, it's just a very unserious career at a lot of times. But it's funny because it's like, is it really that more unserious than even an actual career? Because if you're in something like marketing, people show up and they're like, hey, we got a new vibrator that you put water in and it like sweats. It's like a dick that sweats. Can you come up with ad campaign to sell it, like that's not a serious job either. You know what I mean? Like just because it's a business doesn't mean, like they're like, like Carl's Jr. executives have to walk into a meeting with like a carbon board, particle board, whatever it is, a particle board, poster board, with a poster board, and they're in a suit and they gotta get the poster board and put it on the easel, and they say, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Western Bacon Cheeseburger," and the room claps, and they go, "This is a burger for the rugged guy." Like they say stuff like that, and they go, "So how do we sell it to him?" And that's like serious. Like those people's parents are like, "Yeah, my son's really successful. He works for a huge ad agency." And it's just him and a bunch of idiots in an office in suits thinking of different ways to get a guy to eat a burger, And they probably even think of themselves as like culture makers, where they're like, we fucking, those, we're not the sheep. We're fucking selling to the sheep. You know what I mean? Like that's a very unserious, very silly industry to be in. I don't know how anybody takes anything seriously. You got to take meetings all day. How does anybody take meetings? I can't, and I know that if I am successful in comedy, that there's a lot of meetings that I'll have to take, but those are different. Like those are stupid, but it's like silly in like a not, too bad way, where it's just a bunch of people being like, trying to kind of gussy you up and make you feel good, and it's stupid, but you're your own person, and then they're trying to sell you on something or whatever, That's stupid, but it's in a very specific way. I'm talking about where you're like one of 12 guys sitting in a boardroom, and you just gotta look at another poster board with a bunch of graphs, and they're like, so last year the line was down here, and this year the line's up here, so that's pretty good. Everybody give it up for the line being up here now. Thanks for everybody. You know what I mean? It's like, how do you give a fuck about anything? And I think that's why a lot of people now are trying to be influencers or trying to be YouTubers or, hopefully trying to be other artists of some kind and not just influencers. But I think that's why a lot of people are just pursuing stuff like stand-up and stuff, is just because there's like not really a lot of guarantees, especially for being able to retire. Like because there's tons of people that live it, that, young people that did the right thing and work at these really nice companies, and they're like, I still don't have a lot of money. And they're like, I don't know what this was all for, So I think there's so many people, especially in my generation, that are like, I guess it's not that dumb to go for it anymore. You know what I mean? Like in a world where going to college and getting a degree would definitely get you a good life and a house, it was a little, dumb, or at least risky to say, fuck that, I'm going to try and be a musician or whatever. But in a world where the college degree doesn't guarantee that anymore, it's like, well, fuck it. Yeah, go for the big fish then. Why not? Do you like being a lawyer? No? Okay, then yeah, why fucking try it? You're not even going to make as much money as you want to make doing it, so you might as well try and, be a cooking influencer. Who gives a fuck? Which is kind of a nice safety, that like I think about that. I think about that a lot. I kind of made the decision to pursue comedy at 17. And, I still like it. I don't want to quit. But I'm 24 now, and sometimes I go, am I just ruining my life? Like I don't have any other career experience, and it's only going to get worse. Like my other job prospects get less and less by the day as I stay in this industry. Is this stupid? And then I think of what those other job prospects are, and I'm like, no, this isn't stupid at all. Also, there really aren't other job prospects. I got a bachelor's in creative writing. That just means I could like work at a bookstore. I'd have to go back to school even just to teach, which I think is the only job I could ever get. I think a bachelor's in creative writing, I could like maybe help out at a elementary school or something. You know what I mean? Like I could maybe do like a not teaching but kind of teaching role. But yeah, there's nothing else. So that's why it's like, if you ask me, yeah, do I think trying stand up is stupid? Sure, in a lot of ways. I also think anything else I do is going to be stupid. So this is fine. I at least like this one, you know? In a weird way, this is like the most guaranteed thing there's nothing else I can do that's really more safe than this. I've already fucked up with, getting a stupid college degree. Also, I fucked up at being born at a time where almost any college degree, besides a very specific technical one that can become a better advanced degree, doesn't really fucking matter. So, you might as well just, ball out, baby, because I've been balling since the first grade, to be honest. But yeah, I don't know. Everybody's really lost and scared, it seems like. I think everybody's always felt that way. I think the social media and people's general behavior now makes it all seem kind of new and unprecedented and like we live in a really cold world. I don't think that's true. I think it's kind of always been like that. It's just that, like, people had to kind of write an entire book, But when you only have to write, a couple sentences and you can tweet that out to the entire world, you start to just summarize the whole book into the most hateful parts of it. And then people are like, whoa. But, I hope this podcast hasn't been too lackluster. It is the morning, but I'll tell you what, yesterday I watched it and I was like, phew, boy, is this a white guy with a podcast. Who the hell is this guy? I just wanted to come in today and just have a waltz through the garden. You know what I mean? And you know what I'm talking about? Nice, white, French colonial house, small, square box on a large acreage with lush gardens. They got bell peppers, tomatoes, red onions, all that stuff out there. You go out, you pick it off the vine, you come back, you make a salad with your gay husband. Because you're a gay man and you live in France. That's what I want this episode to feel like. Living in France with your gay husband who looks a lot like Stanley Tucci. Could you do that for me? Could you imagine that? Because I know we don't have a video on this podcast, so even though you're driving, I want you to close your eyes. Some of you are on the freeway right now. Listen to me. Close your eyes. Think Stanley Tucci, lush garden, Versailles, grass, mud, not too much though, little dog, scruffy, little dog, scruffy, Stanley Tucci, living in France with my gay partner. A lot of people, when I dropped out of the race, they said, Donald, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to move to France with a gay guy, and I'm going to love him more than anybody ever has. We're going to have the greatest gay relationship, the likes of which people have never seen. Hunter Biden has never had gay sex the way I am going to have gay sex with my husband, who I love. A lot better gay sex than Senator McCain could have ever had because his arms, they don't work. We know they don't work. Make some noise for how much John McCain's arms don't work. Once again, your eyes should still be closed if you're on the road. I know I kind of dipped into a Trump impression. Keep your eyes fucking closed. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll start doing like driving meditations. I'll be like, okay, this meditation is when you are on the 101 and then you get up to that like 110 San Pedro merge in downtown with like 6 lanes that everybody gets scared of. Turn on this meditation. And then you turn it on and you go, and immediately I just go, close your eyes. And the person in the car might even say out loud, what? And I go, shh, close your eyes. Shut up. Just listen to me. Close your eyes. Turn the wheel back and forth very quickly. 5 times. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. And you just end up where you end up. And that's where you're supposed to be. That is kind of how I drive. Sometimes you just end up where you end up and you got to take U-turns and stuff. A lot of people really try and force it. They shut down a whole freeway lane. Like really their lane is fully open. There are guys behind them going 70 and they're fully stopped just to merge into a lane. And it's like, brother, that's not how you do it. If you can't slide in and not fuck up traffic, then you got to do something else. You got to find another way. Find a new way. Anyway, that's going to be all for today. Thanks for tuning in and tuning out. Bye-bye.